Well, I had a message from Ray on YouTube, and he wanted to know what sort of cameras I use when I'm shooting these videos. It's been a bit of a progression for me. I've gone through a few different cameras as I've gone along on my video journey. The first thing to mention is that all my videos, I shoot them in the format of 1080p. I find this is pretty easy to handle. It gives you high definition. The files aren't too big, and yeah, it's good to work with. 4K is all the rage at the moment. It's high definition. You do get a bit better quality in your pictures, but they're very big files. You need a pretty good computer to be able to edit them out. The beauty of 4K, I suppose, is post-production you can crop in and not lose too much definition. With 1080p, if you're going to do any cropping or zooming in, you will lose definition if you do that. So you need to do those close-ups and that with the camera and not post. Okay, so my journey into video, it started as a still photographer actually, and then stitching stills into videos on the computer. My first camera was a Toshiba. This was a nice little camera. It's called a Camilio. It's got a fold-out screen and was a good little camera. The downside of it was the codec this camera used, it had a 10 times optical zoom as well. The codec this camera used really wasn't compatible with the Sony editing suite I was using, and I had to, all the clips I took on this camera, I had to convert before I even loaded them on to do any editing. It became a bit of a chore, so I eventually moved away from that camera. The next camera I bought was this Sony Handycam. It has interchangeable lenses, which is nice, and a zoom lens, which is probably pretty nice as well. You can zoom the lens out and get a bit closer. The thing you want to remember if you're filming on board a boat is the fact that if you use a zoom on a moving platform that a boat is, you'll get very unsteady video if you try and zoom out. You've really got to get closer to the action, and I found that zoom, anytime I've zoomed out to try and catch some shots, the finished product is nearly unusable because of the camera movement, because the boat's moving around. So zoom is not that great as far as getting in close to the action. This was a nice little camera. It's got a lot of features on it, a screen that you can see what you're actually filming, and that is a big plus, and also lots of other features. Very you can do a lot with it. So it's a camera that was good. We've got audio, a good audio setup on it too. There's a good set of microphones under the fluffy hood here, and the audio was really good. The only thing I use this camera for now is probably doing interviews. So I'll set it up on a tripod. I'll use the microphone. That gives me one bit of audio that's pretty good, and then I can edit that out in and out when I do my editing. But probably the only time I use that camera. The downside of it, it's quite big and bulky. You have to store it in a Pelican case. It's not waterproof in any way, shape or form, and I'm really worried about it being in the marine environment. So a nice camera, but not really that great for what I'm doing here. The next camera I came onto, and you can see the difference in size. These cameras are called Sony Action Cams. Now, they're a great little camera. The best part about them is virtually stick them in your pocket when you're going anywhere, and I think that's part of the trick, is to have the camera on you all the time. It's got pretty good audio, a couple of little stereo microphones on the front, and they do pick up very good audio. So the audio on these cameras is good as well. Lots of features. There's no playback screen, so you can't play back what you've taken until you go to post, but you do get quite used to knowing the angle that you're shooting at and being able to frame your shots up pretty well. I just love the portability of these small cameras. They also come with a waterproof case, so I've been doing a lot of underwater filming at the moment, and by placing it in that case you can take that down to, I think it's about 10 meters, 5 or 10 meters, but that gives you a nice little waterproof case to do underwater filming, which is important on a boat because we're doing a little bit underwater as well. With these underwater cases, you do find that the lens does tend to fog up a little bit, especially in colder water. What you need to do is hold the lens in your hand when you're swimming, or stick it under your armpit, and by doing that your body heat will stop the lens from fogging up. Just a little tip if you're using the cameras underwater. They're a great little camera to use, either in or out of the case. They come with attachments like tripods. So this is a little MIDI tripod I usually take with me as well. A lot of my shots I'm setting up and taking shots by myself, so I need something to hold the camera for me. So this is a little adjustable tripod. You can stick that in your pocket as well, or in your bag, and it helps to mount the camera in certain situations. There is also a suction cap mount available. It's adjustable. I use that on the boat all the time. I'll stick it onto the windows. Okay, you can stick it on a window like that and then mount the camera on there, and they stick pretty well actually. So just a few options. The other camera I have bought is a GoPro, and you're probably familiar with them. GoPro got a pretty big name. They're a good little camera. This one's waterproof without putting it in a case. There are a lot of adapters available for mounting it, and you've got head mounts and chest mounts and things like that, and I will use it in some situations. The downside of the GoPro, it doesn't have very good audio. It doesn't pick up audio very well at all, so don't rely on it. And the other thing is, you've got to keep charging the batteries up all the time. The action cam, I can charge it up and that'll stay charged for weeks. With the GoPro, I don't know why. I've tried all sorts of different things. You charge them up, the charge only lasts for probably a day or two, and then you're down to nearly a flat battery. So you've really got to charge them up before you use them. But they are a handy little camera as well, and it does have some sort of use. But there's some of the downsides I found with them. Charging the battery every time you pick it up, the battery's flat. I bet you if I turn this on now, okay, no battery, it's dead. So that needs charging up right now. I'll probably have to do it before I put it away. Okay, so they're the cameras I've used, and just lately I've got onto another little recorder that I put in my pocket. This is called a Tascam DR10L. It's a little audio recorder. It works through a lavalier mic that I've got on my collar here, and I can record audio on this and then splice that on top of the video when I'm doing it in post-production, and it really does give your audio a lot better quality, especially on a boat when you're out in the wind a lot. I can stand with my back to the wind, and the mic doesn't pick up all of the wind noise that you'd get off the mic on the front of the little camera. So you get a lot better audio using something like that. The experts say that people will put up with bad video, but they won't put up with bad audio. So don't forget about the audio side of your videos when you're making them. Okay, it's pretty important, and I found this to be a real beneficial little tool in my toolbox. It's really enhanced my audio, probably 60 or 70%, and takes all of that wind noise out, which I really hate. So I've got down to some pretty small stuff. I've got two of these little cameras. I've got my little audio recorder, and virtually that's what I travel with. And with the waterproof case, it gives me a fair few options for shooting my video. You can see that the quality is pretty good. They shoot good high definition video. The sensors are really good in these little Sonys, and really they are my go-to camera right now. As far as editing goes, I use a program called Sony Vegas. I do that on the laptop, and it's a pretty good program. It gives you it gives you a timeline where you can add your audio to your video. You can put your music clips on and all that. It's another whole kettle of fish. It's something you have to learn. It took me probably a fair bit of time to actually learn how to use the program, but I like Sony Vegas because it is pretty basic. There are more powerful programs out there that'll do much more with video. Adobe's probably one of them, and a lot of people use that, but they've got a lot of features that I don't think I would use, and I try to keep it pretty basic. So I think Sony Vegas is a good basic program. You can do most things with it. You can take your audio off your video clip and move it around. You can add audio to your video clips. You've got lots of transitions. You can color correct. You can do all the things you really want to do. And I don't want to spend my whole life editing. It takes a lot of work. Every 15-minute video I put up, there's probably about 4 or 5 hours of editing in that. That's the big part of it. But that's what I do. That's what I enjoy doing, and it's my hobby. So I don't mind doing that editing, but I don't want to make it too complex by the same token. I don't want to get too deep into color correction. I'll color correct some clips, but usually they go on RAW, and that's how you see them. So probably the quality of my videos could be better, but look, it's a blog. It's showing people what I'm doing, and the quality, I want it to be up there, but I don't want it, I don't want to go overboard and spend hours and hours trying to get my videos up to a really high standard. So that's pretty well where it's at. Now what I'm doing, we're going to Sri Lanka in a few weeks, and I've decided I want to take all my small gear. So I'm going to take the audio recorder and a couple of little cameras, and I've started to edit it on my iPad. So the last couple of videos you've seen, I've done all the editing on the iPad. Now it makes it really portable. I don't want to carry my laptop around when I go to Sri Lanka. I don't want to take it. So I'm going to take the iPad, and I've found that I can load data onto the iPad, and there's an app I use called UCut, I think it's called. So I can load all my data or all my clips onto the iPad and edit them on the iPad. To do that, I had to buy a little dongle that plugs into the iPad with a card reader on it. So I've got the card reader there. The micro SD card comes out of the cameras. I slide it into the dongle, and that loads straight on to your gallery virtually. Then from there I use an app to edit the videos, and the apps are pretty good. They give you quite a bit of flexibility in editing the videos, not as much as probably Vegas. Vegas is probably a bit easier to use, but I'm getting more familiar with the app I'm using on the iPad, and you can overlay music, you can put transitions in. It's a matter of learning it again. It's a big learning curve again, but it's a good way of doing it, and very, very portable. So when I'm traveling overseas, I'm going to do a fair bit of editing on the iPad. It'll be a good way of doing it. So it's a big learning curve, all of these things. But anyway, that's the gear I use, and it's gone from being quite big and bulky down to something that's quite small and manageable. And I just love these little Sony action cams. Good video, good audio, and with the cover on it, an underwater camera as well. So a great little camera to use, and just easy to stick it in your pocket and use it that way. So that's what I recommend. You're looking at probably $200 or $300. This is a 4K model. It will shoot 4K even though I've got it set to 1080p. But I picked this up off eBay secondhand for $50. So that was pretty handy. As I said, the only thing about these cameras, the downside of it, they haven't got a screen that you can see what you're actually shooting. You can't frame your shot, so you've got to get either good at knowing how to set the camera up so you get the shots pretty well framed, or you can actually Wi-Fi this to your mobile phone, and your mobile phone will be the screen. So that's a handy feature. You can use these cameras with your mobile phone as the screen. So if you really want to get some good shots, look, most of the time I just point and shoot, and the most important thing is to hold the camera vertically. Okay, make sure you get it vertical. If you've got a tilt on it, you can take it out and post, but you're better off holding the camera vertically and still, and that's the way I shoot. I don't worry about the phone. I've got a pretty good idea of the angle that the camera shoots at, and you can set it wide or narrower, but just get used to where you're taking vision from, and it's a pretty easy way of doing it. To connect it to the phone, in some instances I'll connect it to the phone if I want to really have a look at what I'm shooting, but most times I'll just shoot it and work on it when I'm doing the post-production. Anyway, that's my gear. I hope it explains a bit to you. look, I enjoy the hobby, I really do, and I enjoy bringing these videos to you. Some of you might not have been interested in this, but Ray, I hope that answers a few of your questions, and yeah, I'll keep on making the videos and with the smaller gear. Cheers, mate. See ya.